One, two, three, short. Three, alarm.
One, two, three, start.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today is 31st October, 3 p.m. So we'll try to learn what is persuasive speech, or the strategies for persuasive speaking. It's same thing. Persuasive speech or persuasive speaking. So before we go in detail, we are trying to understand what is persuasive speech. Persuasive speech is a specific type of speech in which the speaker has goal of convincing the audience to accept his or her point of view. When every speaker who goes to pursue the audience, he has only one point agenda, or main aim or goal to convince the audience. So he has to give some reasons and other convincing things which make the audience to agree with the speaker, to accept the opinion or point of view of the speaker. That is called persuasive speech. To pursue means to convince, to agree, to accept the point of view of the speaker. The speech is arranged in such a way as to hopefully cause the audience to accept all or part of the expressed view. So when a speaker expresses his view, so he tries and hopes that the audience will understand his point of view, and finally, ultimately, the audience will agree with his point of view. Though the overcharging goal of a persuasive speech is to convince the audience to accept a perspective. Not all audiences can be convinced by a single speech, and not all perspectives can be persuade the audience. So it's very difficult that the particular speaker cannot convince the audience in a single speech. So the perspectives, the ideas, the understanding cannot be agreed by the audience. Then all the perspectives, all the ideas, all the points of views, all the point of views cannot be accepted by the audience in a single speech. It means he has to make speech after speech to make the audience understand his point of view. He needs many speeches. So The speaker can measure the audience's willingness to consider his argument. So it depends upon the speaker, how does he go to put his things to make the people understand and also to make them convinced to understand, to agree his point of view. So an example of persuasive speech is a sales pitch, is a sales program where the speaker goes to a particular area. So there he delivers his speeches. So we can say that during a sales speech, the speaker is trying to convince the audience to buy his or her product or service. So sales pitch में जब वो जाता है तो स्पीकर ट्राई करता है कि audience should become ready to buy his or her product or service. Not only the speaker introduces his, you see, their products, but also he introduces his services also. So there are so many organizations which provide services to the public. So when any speaker puts his service very attractive and charming and beneficial, then the audience will be ready to buy his service. Suppose there is a transportation service. Kareem is there. If Kareem prints, you see the brochures, some literature and websites. So after reading those brochures, papers, literature, are when the people go on, you see that websites, they go through those you see that ideas or opinions or provisions which are to be provided to the customers. Then the customers become attracted by that service and people become ready to hire the service of that particular Kareem transportation service.
Yeah.
So it is just because someone does not make a purchase after the first sale, pitch does not mean the pitch failed. So every salesperson understands well, he knows well that his first attempt cannot bring much more benefits from the listeners. So it does not mean that one pitch or one program that does not bring some fruits or success, it means that pitch, that sales pitch is failed. No. The persuasion is often process. So persuasion is often a process. So people may need multiple persuasive pitches and lot of outside information before they are ready to accept a new view. So it's very difficult for the people to accept the new view. So when the speaker tries to create trust in his organization and he uses his pains and efforts to inform the audience about his organization in a proper way, that the buyers may start to trust by the arguments and reasons of the speaker. So it is somewhat very difficult. So to make the people ready to agree with your point of view, make the people to agree with your opinion, it requires much more energy, repetition, many sales pitches. So when people become much more intimated and much more get information and knowledge, then you see that they start to accept a new view, to accept a new product. So it depends upon the exposition of exposition of the products by the organization. So here now, this was sales pitch. सेल्स पिच में जब आप जाते हैं, एक नुमाइशी पिच होती है जहाँ सेल लगी होती है, तो उधर वो स्पीकर जो है लाउड स्पीकर पर सेल के लिए बहुत सारे चीखता है, और आपको पता है वो कैसी कैसे बातें करता है, सब्ज बाग दिखाता है कभी कभी, और मुबालगे से काम लेता है कि ऐसा होगा तो ऐसा कर, आप ऐसा करेंगे, ये होगा वो होगा, तो वो तो लिसनर्स जो है वो विल बी अट्रैक्टेड, ओ यस प्राइस इज रीजनेबल, क्वालिटी इज आल्सो गुड एंड ड्यूरेबिलिटी इज देयर एंड बेनिफिट इज देयर, द पैकेज इज सो अट्रैक्टिव दैट द audience will be ready to buy it. But it cannot be done in first time. They will go home and again go through the, you see that brochures of the organization or company or literature and those things which they listen, they discuss with other people, then they become ready to buy it. So it needs, it is a process. So now we come to the components of persuasive speech. Persuasive speech के components क्या हैं? कौन से अज्जा हैं? While ethos is an essential part of persuasive speech, pathos, logos are usually combined to form the best possible argument. लीक कर दिया चाहिए ना फिर. While a speaker can attempt to establish ethos or credibility, ethos means the credibility, trust with an audience, it is ultimately assigned to them based on the audience's perception. यानी जो audiences की perception है, understanding है, उसके ऊपर depend करता है कि how the speaker attempts his, how the speaker attempts his work, presents his product, presents his service to the audience. So if the audience does not perceive the speaker as a credible source on the topic, so when the audience listens to the speaker and the audience does not understand, does not mentally understanding what the speaker is talking about his products, then they don't feel credibility. And also the source on the topic, what is the source, what are the sources of the speaker when he describes the topic or when he describes the product, what is the source? If source is not enough, source is not strong to convince the audience, then they will not, you see that, and perceive, they will not be convinced to agree with the point of view of the speaker. So this position will create very uh, hard time, will create very hard time for the speaker's argument. So it will be tough time for the speaker that he finds out different arguments to create the tempo or to create the, you see that, spirit in the minds of the people to buy his product, or he may be convinced or to agree his point of view. तो अपने point of view को समझाना या अपना ख्याल किसी के जहन में डालना, ये it needs hard work. It is somewhat very hard, very difficult. आपके I told you this thing so many times, you do not understand. Then you become hot up. But the speaker needs very patience, very cold patience. So he tries again and again. He arranges the same sales pitches again and again. So when the sales pitch becomes familiar to the listeners, to the audience, then they will start to think to buy the product, or they will be convinced by your arguments. The logos in a speech, logical appeals, are arguments that present a set of information and show why a conclusion must rationally be true. So when you give the logos, when you give the reasons, जब आप दलील और दलाइल देते हैं, पेश करते हैं अपने स्पीच में, और जो आपकी अपील्स हैं वो लॉजिकल हैं, मंतकी हैं, कि आपकी वो सारी चीज़ें एक मंतक के ऊपर है, एक रीजंस के ऊपर है, जो आप रीजंस देते हैं, जो आप रीजंस देकर प्रूव करते हैं, तो फिर आपकी इस स्पीच में जो अपील है, तो वो फिर लिसनर्स को अट्रैक्ट कर सकती है, कन्विंस कर सकती है. तो ये all the arguments that present a set of information and show why conclusion must rationally be true. अब क्या मसला है कि जो आप परस्यू करते हैं ना, जो परस्यूसिंग इंफॉर्मेशन देते हैं, जो आप रीजंस बताते हैं, जो रैशनली हैं, जो लॉजिकल हैं, अक्ल के बुनियाद के ऊपर हैं, तो वो क्या होता है कि वो जब ऐसा होता है तो फिर जो लिसनर्स जो है वो समझते हैं कि ये जो कुछ कह रहा है वो सही कह रहा है. सो पैथोस का मतलब होता है उसमें दर्दनाक, बड़े जज्बाती अंदाज में अपील्स होती हैं और उनको इमोशनली जो है वो इंस्टिगेट करता है लिसनर्स को. वो अपील्स जो हैं वो दे ट्राई इन हिज अपील्स to make the audience feel a certain way so that they will accept a conclusion. So when you conclude your speech, in that speech, you make so many emotional appeals. You just create some emotional atmosphere, and on such emotional grounds you can impress, you can cultivate, आप उनको सहरज़दा कर देंगे, मुतासर कर देंगे, तो फिर क्या होगा? तो वो then conclusion will be the acceptance of the audience, acceptance of the audience. They accept it, they agreed with the point of view. So negative political ads, for example, often incorporate emotional appeals by the juxtaposing an opponent with negative emotions such as fear, pause. Yes. So I was talking about the logos in a speech, logical appeals. Logos किसको कहते हैं? Words, reason, thought, principles to control the universe. So जब आप अपनी स्पीच में जो भी बात करते हैं जिस टॉपिक के ऊपर, तो उसके लिए आपको एक प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ रीजंस को यूज करना पड़ेगा। तो वो लॉजिकल अपीस होंगी, मंतकी अपीस होंगी। इस तरह से आपके जो आर्गुमेंट्स हैं दैट प्रेजेंट अ सेट ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन। तो यानी persuasive speech is not only to convince the people, but at the same time, persuasive speech also provides a set of information and show why conclusion must be rationally be true. कि आया वो जो इंफॉर्मेशन है वो एक प्रोवाइड करती है, वो persuasive speaking एक सेट ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन जो है वो प्रोवाइड करती है और ये साबित करने की कोशिश करता है परसुएसिव स्पीक में कि जो मैं इंफॉर्मेशन दे रहा हूँ तो अल्टीमेटली it is true because he gives a set of information that depends upon the logical basis. So for example, arguments heard in the court are logical arguments. When any advocate represents a person, accused person और जो जवाबदार है या फरियादी है उसकी तरफ से जब अपीयर होता है, तो वो जब कोई चीज़ कहता है कि ये बात इस तरह से सही है और जो मेरा फरियादी है, प्लेंटिफ है, कंप्लेनेंट है, उससे ये मसला, उसको ये मसला हो गया और इसने ये किया, उसके ये रीजंस हैं, उसके ये ग्राउंड्स हैं, ये शवाहिद हैं, तो ये सारी चीज़ें जब पेश होगी कोर्ट में तो उसको कहेंगे हम कि ही गे अ लॉजिकल आर्ग्यूमेंट्स। सिर्फ इस तरह नहीं कहेगा कि ये जो मेरा क्लाइंट है, जो मेरा एप्लीकेंट है, वो सही है, इसलिए इसके फेवर में जो है ना वर्डिक्ट दी जाए। ये ऐसा नहीं हो सकता जब तक कि आप जो कंप्लेंट कर रहे हैं उस कंप्लेंट को लॉजिकल आर्ग्यूमेंट्स के ऊपर यानी मंतकी अंदाज में दलील और दलाल के जरिए, साबिती के जरिए, शवाहिद के जरिए जब वो चीज़ पेश करेंगे कोर्ट में, तो कोर्ट विल हर्ड एंड फील कि ये the judge may be convinced by the arguments of the advocate and the judgment may goes in the favor of applicant. On the other hand, जो accused है, जो मुल्जिम है, अगर उसका advocate पूरी वो डिफर करता है और उसके हक़ाइक़, फिगर, फैक्ट्स, इंफॉर्मेशन, a set of information पेश करता है, शवाहिद पेश करता है और he tries to prove the arguments of the advocate false and misleading, तो फिर वो judge listens both sides, मुल्जिम के जज को भी सुनता है और फरियादी के जज वकील को भी सुनता है, मुल्जिम के वकील की भी बात सुनता है। तो दोनों जब एक चीज़ के ऊपर कंट्रोवर्शियल आर्ग्यूमेंट्स देते हैं एक दूसरे के अगेंस्ट और फेयर में, तो फिर वो जज साहब कंक्लूड करता है कि द सेट ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन जो मुल्जिम की तरफ से पेश किया गया है, हकायक, स्टैटिस्टिक्स और फिगर ऑफ फैक्ट्स, या जो वकील साहब हैं वो फरियादी की तरफ से किस तरह पेश हुआ है और उसने किस तरह लॉजिकल आर्ग्यूमेंट्स दिए हैं, तो वो अब दोनों में से जस्टिस वो होगा कि जिसके आर्ग्यूमेंट्स लॉजिकल होंगे, जिसके आर्ग्यूमेंट्स इंफॉर्मेटिव होंगे और साबित करेंगे कि ये चीज़ सही है, तो जज साहब विल गिव द वर्डिक्ट इन फेवर ऑफ दैट साइड, उसी साइड को फिर फेवर करेगा। सो पैथाज तो पैथाज जो मींस a quality that evokes pity or sadness, उसको पैथास कहते हैं, दर्दनाक, गमनाक। तो वो उसमें जब आप पिटी पैदा करते हैं, रहम और प्यार और मोहब्बत और हमदर्दी पैदा करते हैं, उसको कहते हैं पैथोस। तो इमोशनल जो है वो जज्बाती अपील्स होती हैं। तो ये आर अपील्स दैट सीक टू मेक द ऑडियंस फील a certain way so that they will accept a conclusion. तो फिर वो ऑडियंस जो है वो आपका कंक्लूजन एक्सेप्ट करेगा, जो आपकी राय है उससे उसके साथ इत्फाक करेगा। When he listens your pathetical appeals, when he listens your emotional appeals, then they become inspired, वो मुतासिर होते हैं और कहते हैं कि yes, whatever he is concluding, that's true. Negative political ads, for example, often incorporate emotional appeals by juxtaposing an opponent with a negative emotion such as a fear. So, यानी एक juxtaposing का मतलब place or deal with closed together for contrasting effect. Place or deal यानी वो ऐसी डील करता है, ऐसी बातें कहता है अपने अपोनेंट के खिलाफ विथ नेगेटिव इमोशन सच एज फियर। तो वो जो है वो फिर इससे भी एक माहौल पैदा होता है। फिर इट डिपेंड्स अपॉन द ऑडियंस वेदर दे एक्सेप्ट द एलिगेशंस against the opponents of the speaker or not. So you should try. So speaker always avoids to create negative emotion against his opponent, but he just proves with figure and facts that whatever he is saying against his opponent, that is truth. So if that is truth, then he has no need to, you see, that create negative emotions against his opponents. Whatever his opponents were doing in past, now what will they do in present and future? He gives the big picture of that. That you see the big picture, बिल्कुल clear picture जो होता है ना, वो देता है अपने opponents की, जिसमें listeners can see the big picture of the opponents. Again, opponents come and they try to give the clear, tries to describe the clear position of their opponents. So अब ये depends upon the listener कि whether they are convinced by your opponents or they are convinced by you. So बहरहाल components of persuasive speech के लिए ये जरूरी है कि उसमें लॉगस हो और लॉजिकल अपील हो और जनाब ऐसी सेट ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन हो तो उस इंफॉर्मेशन को लिसनर्स को वो मुतासिर करे और वो समझे कि ये दलील दलाल के हिसाब से बिल्कुल सही इंफॉर्मेशन है। तो फिर जिस तरह मैंने आपको बताया कि रैशनली अगर आर्ग्यूमेंट्स कोई एडवोकेट कोर्ट में देता है तो वो ही जो है केस जीत जाता है, जज उनकी फेयर में बात करता है। तो इस तरह से अगर आप पॉलिटिकल कोई स्पीच कर रहे हैं तो उसमें भी आप इस तरह का माहौल पैदा करेंगे कि वट एवर यू आर टॉकिंग अगेंस्ट योर यू सी दैट opponents, that is true. So if you convince the listeners that your